Welcome to another in the series of Mystical Perspectives. I'm your host, Reverend Cindy Paulus, and we've been going through some of Dr. Paul Leon Masters' books. This one, of course, that I've been doing a lot of is Spiritual Mind Power Affirmations. They're practical, mystical, and spiritual inspiration applied to your life. And it's a wonderful book that gives you seed thought affirmations that really plant interesting things into your mind that can make your life better. And the book is lovely. It's good to get. You can get it at Amazon. You can also get it at metaphysics.com. Dr. Masters also has a new book out called Meditation Dynamics. His first book was Mystical Insights. Today we're talking about turning failure into success. This is a really important subject because a lot of people get so completely depressed and down when they feel like they're a failure. And there's a lot of society that actually makes you feel like you're a failure pretty easily. We always hear stories of success, right? So we want to be successful, right? And when we fail, we feel like our whole identity has been shattered. So this is going to be a wonderful way to look into how we learn to change our perspective about what success is and about ourselves and about what it takes to be successful. I'll start always with the affirmations from the book, and then we go into a talk about it. And the first affirmation is, bless and release. I bless and release any so-called failure of the past from all levels of my mind, and simply regard it as a learning experience. So important. This whole life is a schoolyard, a place to learn till you graduate, right? And pass on. So repeating this one, I bless and release any so-called failure of the past from all levels of my mind, and simply regard it as a learning experience. The next affirmation is not the experience. I recognize that I am not any failure experience, for failure experiences are only temporary and not part of my external self-oneness with God. Because while we're here, we're in this field of energy, we're vibrating in a certain way, we experience things, we call them failures or successes, and that's part of this life experience, but it's not who we really are. Repeating that, I recognize that I am not any failure experience, for failure experiences are only temporary and not part of my eternal self-oneness with God. The next one's elimination. I regard all failure experiences to be part of an elimination process in the personal ego level of my mind to clear away all that is distracting me from what God's presence wishes me to do to experience success. I love the take on this, right? And not only is it correct, but it really changes the way you think about what you're learning and the way you react to it and the way you feel about it. Again, elimination. I regard all failure experiences to be part of an elimination process in the personal ego level of my mind to clear away all that is distracting me from what God's presence wishes me to do to experience success. So I guess we could look at that and also translate that into meaning trial and error, right? I mean, we try and try and try until we figure out which way is the best way to go. The school of life, the school of hard knocks. The next one's already so. I accept that in the mind of God, at the center of consciousness within me, that all seeming so-called failures of the past no longer exist, and that only success for me exists in God's mind. Repeating, I accept that in the mind of God, in the center of consciousness within me, that all seeming so-called failures of the past no longer exist, and that only success for me exists in God's mind. So again, we're talking about the shadows of the ego, what we call failures. And the thing is that those were lessons we learned, and they're shadows, and they're gone in the collection of the universal consciousness and our communication and existence in it. There is only that God that is success. Coming up next is will. I give up my personal will, which may have past failure experiences associated with it, to the will of God, which contains my success within it. I give up my personal will, which may have past failure experiences associated with it, to the will of God, which contains my success within it. So again, here's something that we bring up quite often in mystical perspectives. It's not you, it's God, and God working through you that is successful. So when you associate and give up your personal ego and your will to God, then you're guided toward success. Next, God knows. I accept that God knows my needs and creates success for me in accord for what is best for my eternal soul. And again, it's so important. Sometimes we think we know best. Remember that old show, Father Knows Best? Well, there's a lot more that we can't really see going on. So yes, God knows where we don't know. Repeating, I accept that God knows my needs and creates success for me in accord with what is best for my eternal soul. And consciousness is next. My mind is open daily to be filled with creative ideas that bring me success. Repeating, my mind is open daily to be filled with creative ideas that bring me success. Meditation is the last one here. Through my daily practice of meditation, negative failure energy is sublimated into God's light energy to bring forth creative success ideas into my awareness. In other words, we're turning lead into gold here, right? Again, repeating, through my daily practice of meditation, negative failure energy is submitted into God's light energy to bring forth creative success ideas into my awareness. So when we're tuned into the Creator, we get creative ideas. When we are tuned into the Source, we are filled with light and the shadows disappear. So those are the affirmations. They're on page, let me look at the page here, page 67 of Spiritual Mind Power Affirmations. Now, delving a little bit more into the subjects, we've got to really again realize the importance of our receptivity to being successful, and what we need to remove from our lives that is blocking success, so that we can turn failure into success, right? And on the material plane, we have to look at what we think success is as well. It's a very important subject. If you think having a lot of money in the bank is successful, well, then you might be really missing the point of why you're alive, and it can get you extremely distracted and off course. But if you are attuned to what you're supposed to be doing and can feel that you are in the right position to help yourself and others, then you get into that center of that consciousness that is in full force with the goal of life and your purpose, right? So again, this is happening while we are in meditation. And sometimes we don't understand how subtle the workings are of our subconscious and conscious mind. And if we get distracted and they're too subtle, we may not think there's any reason to meditate. But we're here on earth to learn and to grow. And when we meditate, we can digest and dissolve and integrate and immerse ourselves in the energy we need to be successful and to grow. We learn that most when we fail or don't necessarily get what we want, that sometimes we learn the most. In other words, a lot of us like to be in a comfort zone. Is that you? We get enough getting by, we're okay, we don't seem like anything is going on, we don't want to rock the boat, so we don't take any chances. But if you don't take the chances, you also may not get the big things that are waiting for you to come. It takes a little risk to take those chances to make those goals and dreams to come true. But when we make mistakes, we're kind of forced out of that comfort zone and need to look at ourselves realistically and what we can do to be better. But the idea is not to get completely freaked out about our upset or defeated by our mistakes, not to get depressed, but it's really important that we look at and perceive those incidents as lessons that we learn from to get us where we need to be. And if you don't accept that they were lessons and understand that they are of value, you may bring your whole consciousness in life down to not understand and get that those lessons happened for a reason. Now, there's a lot of amazing examples about this if you need a little motivation. We've all heard of Henry Ford, right? Of course we know Henry Ford, famous for the automobile and $5 workday. Did you know that he was a debtor who filed bankruptcy twice? He began his career as a machinist and then an engineer. During his time, he worked to invent a vehicle. In 1896, he was successful, and he created what he called a quadricycle. And he really was sure he was on to something amazing. So he quit his day job and launched his Detroit automobile company. However, he was unable to balance the finances of the company while simultaneously tinkering with mechanics of his vehicles. And so he couldn't even repay his investors, and he was forced to file bankruptcy. Second chances, undeterred, a few years later, Ford relaunched his company under the name of the Henry Ford Company. Unfortunately, he failed to properly brand and market his vehicles, which spelled financial disaster. And the public didn't understand his inventions, and the sales tanked, and once again, he filed for bankruptcy. But that's where then it gets interesting, especially for modern-day bankruptcy filers. Ford did not allow the 2 bankruptcy filings to deter him. They only made him more determined to be successful. And the third time was a charm. He relaunched his company and called it the Ford Motor Company, and the rest is history. And from that, there's a really famous quote by Henry Ford which says, "Failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently." I love that. I'll repeat it. Failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. Well, he's not the only one who's been considered a failure and turned it into a huge success. You know, we all know author J.K. Rowling. She's the one who did the very famous Harry Potter series. But she was a failure too. You know, she graduated from college and in her own words, she says, "I'd failed on an epic scale. An exceptionally short-lived marriage had imploded. She was jobless. She was a lone parent and as poor as possible without being homeless. She had fears that her parents had it from me, and that she was, by every standard, the biggest failure that she felt she knew or anyone knew. Yet again, she turned that around and became a multimillionaire, a huge success." We all know about Steve Jobs and how important and how big and how rich he became. Well, you probably have read his story. He was fired from his company for his way of doing business, and he was, he was kicked out. But he said, I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And lastly here, another very famous person we've heard of, Bill Gates. Did you know he was a Harvard dropout? He co-owned a business called Traf-O-Data, which really was a big failure. But, he had this huge skill and passion, and he turned the failure into the software company we all know now called Microsoft. And then at 31 years old, he became that self-made billionaire. And in his words, it's fine to celebrate success, but it's more important to heed the lessons of failure. So those are some things to reflect on. That we do not have to think of ourselves as losers and failures if we make a mistake. We have no limitations, and how many times we can begin again and learn each time from those mistakes, that we can indeed then find that successful way of living, doing the work that you love. It's so important to have the confidence and not be brought down by what we feel is failure. All of life is really supporting you. God is supporting you, and we have to give thanks for those abundance and wonderful blessings that we get. And we have to give thanks for our failures, because it's through our failures that we learn and we get better and we get to be what we really are supposed to be and meant to be. Let's go briefly into a meditation here. Let's sit comfortably and relax and have your spine straight. Let the energy flow through it. Take some very deep breaths, breathing in deeply, holding your breath for a few seconds and breathing out, breathing in deeply, holding your breath and breathing out, releasing, releasing, releasing. Breathing in and being aligned now with the light and the love and the power of all success, the Creator, the oneness of God. Feel the light of God's presence filling every single cell of your body. Feel that light coming into your head, through your neck and into your heart. Feel it blessing you with love. Know that you are not alone. Be aware of this energy. Absorb the blessings that are present when you are very still and go within. Look at your life. Look at your purpose. Reflect on what you've done in life. Have you felt sometimes you weren't successful? Look at what might have made you feel that way and see the blessings involved in what might have caused some of those things you might have called failure. Look at the lessons and see if you can learn from those lessons and how you overcome mistakes and grow with each lesson. How you're building that stairway to success. Reflect on what it is for you to be truly successful. See all of your outstanding events that have led you to this point right now. See what you created that was aligned with your soul's calling. How else can you find that true intention to be your ultimate and real and final purpose, the purpose that you were brought to here in life for? Feel that purpose and that calling. Feel the strength of God working through that soul of yours to give you the strength and inspiration you need to be successful. Think of all the good you can do that's just waiting for you. Bless you in this very moment. Bless God. Know that you can create and be who you were meant to be. In this very moment, Allow yourselves to feel successful. Allow yourself to feel attuned to that challenge of being who you were meant to be and knowing that this is your ultimate purpose. Visualize how you feel once you have accomplished that. Have the courage to believe that this is possible, and with God it will be so. Remember, God is your partner in life, and with Him as your co-creator, all things are possible. Breathe in this reality. Breathe it in deep. Absorb it. Feel the positive energy. Let it be so. Believe this, and you will see you are able to be successful, to change your life and be who you wish to be. Thank God for the presence and for the allowance of you to be who you were meant to be. And breathe in deeply again and say, thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so it is. I'm going to close today with the Aramaic Lord's Prayer. It says, Father, Mother of the cosmos, shimmering light of all, focus your light within us as we breathe your holy breath. Enter the sanctuary of our hearts, uniting within us the sacred rays of your power and beauty. Let your heart's desire unite heaven and earth through our sacred union. Help us fulfill what lies within the circle of our lives today. Forgive our secret fears, as we freely choose to forgive the secret fears of others. Let us not enter into forgetfulness, tempted by false appearances. For from your astonishing fire comes the eternal song, which sanctifies all, renewed eternally in our lives and throughout creation. We seal these words in our hearts, committed in trust and faith. Amen. I want to thank you for listening, and you can get the book, which is so helpful, Spiritual Mind Power Affirmations. It's available on Amazon. And if you go to metaphysics.com, you can hear the lectures and get the book. Also, the first book, Mystical Insight, is there by Dr. Paul Leon Masters, and the latest book, Meditation Dynamics. So I thank you again for listening, and I wish you a very successful and happy year. You can go to my website, mysticalperspectives.com, for all the copies and free listenings of the shows that have been done so far. And God bless you always.